Guys, I'm fascinated by these conference races without divisions because say what you will about divisions, especially living in the Big Ten over the last 10 years, where the best team in the conference plays the fifth best team in the conference, maybe. So we've seen that, but at least you had a decisive situation where, of course, the best record from each division goes to the championship game. If there's a tie, they played head to head. There you go. You're all set. There has to be a three-way tie for there to be any kind of complications. I could only find 4 ties, three-way ties in the history of conference championship play, none in the Big Ten. Since they started division play in 2011, I found 2 in the SEC, 2 in the Big 12, where there's, and maybe the most famous one was that Texas Tech, Oklahoma one, where they all beat each other. Oklahoma got to go to the national championship game, and Texas beat them head to head despite having the same record. Oklahoma went to the BCS championship game. So I was trying to make a mess of the Big Ten, and I got to admit it was a little more difficult than I thought because I thought there's going to be a mess somewhere. There's going to be a mess somewhere. Like I want to see Miami, Clemson, and SMU all go undefeated in conference play and not play each other. So we're going to have a team that's undefeated in its conference not get to play in the conference championship game. How ridiculous would that be? But in the Big Ten, it obviously can get messy, but I'm not going to be predicting Nebraska to beat Ohio State and such things, because if Ohio State runs the table, Penn State and Indiana run the table other than the Ohio State game, then it creates a three-way tie for second place, but Ohio State is the obvious tiebreaker over both of them because they would have won the games. And then even if Oregon drops a game and it's a four-way tie for first place, it's still a clear-cut Oregon beat Ohio State beat the other two, and you got your championship game. So it may not happen this year, but I am fascinated by these conference scenarios that there's going to be a log jam somewhere, and it may not be the Big Ten, but we're going to see it.
I think the easiest solution for Ohio State, I think Illinois is the team that Ohio State doesn't play that's still in this thing that could, throw a monkey wrench in this.
At Oregon this week.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they're going to get their second loss, theoretically this week, and that would take care of that. So if Ohio State wins out, then they would be the only, one-loss team or tied with Oregon if Oregon were to lose a game. Let me just double check that.
I knew, Steve, Wisconsin, there was a scenario.
Wisconsin is right there too. They need Wisconsin to lose because they don't play Wisconsin. So it's Wisconsin and Illinois are the two. If Ohio State wins out and Illinois and Wisconsin lose, then Ohio State goes. So
that's the scenario, Steve, that I thought of a few days ago that I forgot to bring up. There you go. Illinois upsets Oregon. Mm-hmm. You get a 5-way tie.
Yeah, I would. Go ahead, Steve.
I want to caution one thing. If Oregon does lose and it creates a multi-team tie with one loss, I don't think what I said is correct because there is some kind of convoluted tiebreaker about comparing the records of the teams that you played in the conference to separate teams that didn't play each other. So if it's Indiana, okay, let's say it's Oregon, Wisconsin. Oh, hell, let's just say it's Oregon, Indiana, Penn State, and Ohio State, whatever it is. Ohio State may not be guaranteed because if the records of the teams that they played are the worst of the four, then they're not in the top two. They may not go to the championship game. So it's some kind of convoluted thing. I don't know.
Yeah, like I wrote a little bit about this with the scenario of if Illinois were to win this week at Oregon and all 5 of those teams finish with one loss, basically Ohio State would be the first team in because you do all of the head-to-heads and everybody's beating each other, but then it's the record, your record against all of the teams in this tiebreaker scenario, the winning percentage. And Ohio State's winning percentage would be 667, and
2-1. Yeah.
Yeah. Oregon would be 500, and there'd be a couple of other 500s. Indiana would be like 0 or something like that. So Ohio State would get in, and then they'd figure it out between Oregon and whoever else. Now, Mark, in your scenario with the ACC, I don't know how torn up SMU would be about being left out of the conference championship game. I don't know how torn up teams are going to be about that now, because you're getting in at 12-0. So you're going to be in.
They'd be 11-1.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah. So
They're
in
in.
that scenario,
in.
Here's my other thing with this playoff. If SMU is 11-1 and they don't make it, they should not jump whoever else is in the conference championship game, other than the fact that they didn't get to play them. So, yeah, we're going to be on we've got a media call, pretend type of thing with the CFP next Wednesday at noon. So I'll have to leave a few minutes earlier, but I'm interested in going through some of those scenarios, talking things like that out. And we've seen over the years, the committee says whatever they want, and there's no, well, you said this last week, so why doesn't this apply this week? And it's like, well, this is
Because I said so.
Right. This
Like
this
I
is how
tell
we
my
feel.
4-year-old, because I said so.
Yeah, and so there's going to be an awful lot of that, and even more of that, because the conference championship is no longer like a data point, but I still think making the conference championship game should be.
Yeah, and again, Ohio State can't figure this out for themselves. They would have to be selected, but that 5 seed sure looks like the route. If you're not going to win the conference championship, of course, that 5 seed is the place to be.
Although I'll say defensive coordinators probably wouldn't be thrilled about playing Army or Navy in that scenario with that 12 seed. But then you get Iowa State or Kansas State or BYU in the next round. So you'll be okay as long as you don't lose too many defensive tackles getting cut blocks against the option teams, and then the next week. But yeah, that's that. I think there's going to be that might be the in vogue place to be after the season, and people see how it goes, because that's also probably going to be a top 3 team getting that number 5 seed, because it's going to be the second place team of the best conference or the second best conference, something like that.
Exactly.
And they'll be favored all the way until I don't know, the semifinals maybe.
I'd be willing to say that after 10 years of this playoff, that 70 to 80% of these championships are going to be won by the 1, 2, and the 5 seeds.